Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Uzbekistan Investment Forum here in London. I am particularly excited because I know a lot of the faces in this room, so it makes my presentation less nervous. So, capital markets in Uzbekistan. Some of my colleagues already have mentioned why it is important to develop robust domestic capital markets. It is, in my view, and a lot of the folks we're working with share that view, it is an important infrastructure to develop domestic economy and supplement the banking system and the system that's provided by the government through its taxation and financing. My colleagues at the agency have done a little back-of-the-envelope exercise. I don't claim this to be 100% accurate, but it tells me in this graph the two growth models. The green one is a GDP growth for the next 5 years as calculated by the IMF calculations. And then we've added on what would GDP of Uzbekistan could look like, the growth of GDP, if we're able to mobilize investments and savings through capital markets and provide additional financing to the economic activity of Uzbekistan. And the figures are here at about 2% higher, and I can probably tell you that going forward, if capital markets is efficient enough and we can create its capacity to match the size of the banking sector, we can probably even reach higher GDP growth, because as many of you have stated in this room before, the main driver, the main engine for economic growth will come from the private sector, not from the state. And the capital markets is the critical element for that. Just, okay, some slides are here, don't show the figures. Okay, next slide. So we did a comparison of existing banking sector infrastructure, the capital market size, and the budget spending. The figures of the banking system and the figures of the budget spending are in line with a lot of the world peer economies in terms of the proportion to the GDP. So what we clearly see that we have a huge potential in mobilizing capital market infrastructure to add on additional financing. And as many of you know, various investment opportunities in the economy, particularly in the growing economy, can be financed by a variety of financial instruments that capital markets can provide. Bonds, the equities, preferred shares, also risk management instruments, derivative products, which non-existent in Uzbekistan at the moment, and therefore a lot of the investors hesitate because they're unable to hedge, for example, their foreign exchange risks. This is a slide on a couple upcoming IPOs, but I think my friend Sontleke Bikenov and I, we need to do some fine-tuning on this list. But we are developing at the moment a list of about 20 companies that we need to agree by probably early February and present to the leadership, to the government, in terms of privatization of companies that we would like to see in 2020 and 2021. I also now want to take this opportunity and share with you some of the early conclusions that we have come to with regards to capital market strategy. As you know, our partners at EBRD and the Asian Development Bank have helped us to mobilize a pool of about 15, I would really call world-class capital market experts from Hong Kong, London, and Paris, who worked tirelessly with our agency and friends in the government over the course of the last 6 months in doing a full diagnostics of bottlenecks that preventing problems that we have in capital markets and strategy for the next 5 years, what things we need to focus on to deliver on our goals. These parameters are kind of top line, what we want to achieve in 2020, and I'm thinking these are tangible, quantifiable figures that if we're successful, I can probably with full confidence, say that the reforms are now irreversible in the capital market space. I'll start with the bottom part. It's the development of capital market law and the law on the agency. These two are super crucially important. Number one, capital market law. What it will do, it will replace 100+ different regulatory documents, key laws, decrees, resolutions of cabinet of ministers on which capital markets operate with one single capital market law. And we, at the moment, in a very close discussions with our partners in Department of Commerce of United States, with the State Department of United States, also with the colleagues at the CTUK in United Kingdom, to see how we can tap into this international expertise and mobilize and utilize common law principalities as we design and we will replace Uzbekistan capital market law. We were debating whether or not to design or develop maybe a separate standalone international financial center. But clearly it is a very expensive exercise and it will not be able to capture the entire nation and all critical players. So the idea we're entertaining at the moment to combine these two efforts and prepare one single capital market code that will use the best international practices. Role of the agency, we would like to put together a law on the capital market so we give more credibility, we give more powers to the regulator and make it truly independent so it protects primarily investor rights with full enforcement capabilities. On the product basis, Uzbekistan, given its background and where it is, there's a huge demand for what we see to support Islamic products. So we're in the process of designing Sukuk bonds together with the support of Islamic Development Bank, and we hope to introduce regulatory modifications by second quarter of next year. And IPOs, we talked about it, and my friend Snudliki Bikenov will talk about it more in detail, but we would like to put forward 5 top-class companies, Uzbek companies, and bring them to Tashkent Stock Exchange with a sizable offering, 25–30% of the shares that are owned by state to be offered to the public at a discounted rate and let the investors give the chance to make money. We're also looking into increasing the retail investor base and targeting at least 10,000 retail investors by end of 2020. At the moment, I think there are less than 3,000 active brokerage accounts in Uzbekistan. Some of the key parameters for end of the strategy year, and obviously reaching a frontier market status with the MSCI would be a huge push to utilize and access international investor base that focus on emerging market, frontier markets. We're looking at free float 10% target by end of 2020 of GDP of all new securities that will be issued to public, and with approximately equal split between equities, corporate bonds, and I see some mistake here, sorry, on translation. It should be government securities. So because developing domestic capital markets is crucial and important, we at the agency pushing for localization of all security issuances and to do that in local currency. We know very well how dangerous it is to expose the country or nation to currency risk. And in order to minimize these risks, I think it's important that we focus on local currency issuances. Some of the main stages of the strategy implementation, we talked about starting, in the first quarter of 2020. Hopefully we'll be able to have a presidential resolution in the beginning of next year, putting forward key objective for capital market strategy development. And we want to put together a project office together with all other key stakeholders that will focus purely on strategy implementation. We will have during the year, by end of 2020, we want to introduce all the necessary amendments and replace existing laws and regulation with the Capital Market Code. We're talking about ICT improvement infrastructure. As you know, our stock exchange is co-owned 25% by the Korean Stock Exchange, and they've provided technology to us, which I'll tell you honestly, I don't think has been utilized to its full potential. But we're in discussions to engage our Korean partners and the Korean Stock Exchange more actively in Uzbekistan so they can bring their technology, not only technology, but the know-how and the resources.